Welcome back to Out Chicago. Scott Duff here, along with Ella Miller. And I think we're all living our nightmare on Elm Street, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, because clearly the results of the election, it was not what millions of folks was hoping for. And like I said earlier in the show, I am a Gen Xer. And I was taught some really important values by people like Fred Rogers. If you haven't seen the Mr. Rogers documentary,
I
think I need to have that on like a repeat. Like
I saw it on a plane and cried my eyes out.
Cried your eyes out, and it's always good to remember his words to look for the helpers in dark times. And there is no one is more of a helper than Brian C. Johnson, CEO of Equality Illinois. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Scott and Ellen, it's so good to be with you. How are you and your loved ones?
Girl,
we're holding on. We're holding on for dear life.
I've got like irpy burpy tummy all the time. I feel like astronaut diapers might have to come into play. It is just awful. How are you holding up?
How about you, Brian? Yeah.
You and your husband and your daughter.
Yeah, I think I'm of two minds, quite honestly. One is super clear-eyed and emboldened about the risks that we face and the challenges ahead, and eager to tackle them. And I wouldn't be sharing with you all the truth if we weren't scared and having really tough conversations in my home about what do we need to do to protect our daughter and our family against an administration who is very eager to come for our rights.
Yep. So what does the road ahead look like for LGBTQ folks? It's funny. I'm glad that you said that you were clear-eyed, because I've had this strange, eerie sense of calm. Just to be like, okay, let's just focus, see what's going on. But what are you all looking at Equality Illinois? What do you think? What do you see as potentials that are coming down the road? I know it's like look into a crystal ball, but I don't think we have to look too far except for Project 25.
I was going to say they wrote it out in a blueprint.
Yep.
First of all, I just have to remind all of us that we have always been a resilient, brave community who is really good at taking care of each other during hard times.
Yeah, we are.
And so,
we really are.
That is our strength. We know chosen family like nobody else.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
we're going to lean into that. And I think that is important to hold on to. I think as we begin to see things clear, I think there are four types of things we are worried about, particularly in Illinois, where we have so many protections, right? So we're very grateful for that. So I think one is we're concerned around the inclusion of LGBTQ plus people in our public education system. We have great laws on the books here for that, but what happens if the federal government threatens to defund public schools that teach about LGBTQ plus history or LGBTQ plus public health? I think that's a real risk. I think, two, we're worried about access to medical care, particularly gender-affirming care, right? Again, what if the federal government threatens to defund providers that provide meaningful life-saving services to queer people, especially trans people? I think we're worried about the non-discrimination protections, not broadly, but in and around the federal government. So if you are a federal employee, if you are a federal contractor, we're worried that your rights to be affirmed in the workplace may be threatened. And then I think, there's fourth around concerns, and I think it's overlapped, is military service, right? I think the opportunities for queer people, LGBTQ plus people, to serve our country openly and bravely in the military, I think will be curtailed. So those are the first, I think those are the four areas we're most immediately concerned about: public education, healthcare, federal employment, and military.
Just a couple little things.
Is that it?
And Brian, with him having the Senate and likely having the House, what are our means to fight back on all this?
Well, I think there are three things we absolutely have to do. First is We have to make sure that Illinois' protections are as strong as they can be. We have pro-equality supermajorities in the Illinois House and Senate. We have very supportive statewide elected officials, and we need to make sure that we are emboldening them to shore up our rights there. I think number two is, we need to make sure that we are continuing to organize going forward. And I say this, like, please, everybody, if you need the break, take the break, rest up. This is important. But we need to be making sure for the midterms, for the next presidential, we are getting federal people elected to federal office who are willing to stand up for us. I think the third thing, and I think this is really, really important, is we cannot get into solely a defensive crouch. Right. There can be this temptation just to say, no more wins. We shouldn't be bold anymore. Let's just make sure that we're shoring up our rights and playing defense. And that is really important, Scott and Ellen. Yeah. Absolutely. But if all we're doing is playing defense, we allow the other side to have all the time, energy, and resources to set the terms of the debate.
Amen.
And so we need to claim that back. We need to be making sure that we are requiring every school district in Illinois to teach public health and safety education that is LGBTQ affirming. We need to make sure that we are protecting the lives of sex workers by making sure we are decriminalizing sex ed, right? We need to make sure that we are advancing LGBTQ plus rights, because Illinois should be even more protective of its queer population, and we need the people who want to come for us to be reacting to us and not just setting the terms of the debate that we have to respond to.
Yeah, well, now, Brian, I'm glad you brought that up, Brian, because, it is Equality Illinois, so it is all Illinois. Have you heard anything from, downstate to, what the reactions are to, because you work with agencies across the entire state. Clearly up here in Chicago, we're heavily blue, but then moving down, well, just go to Schaumburg, I mean, but downstate too. What have you been hearing with the other agencies that you partner with? Because Equality Illinois is for all Illinois.
That's right. And, I had the great privilege of spending most of the last week traveling around the state, knocking on doors, supporting our pro-equality candidates. And it's just a reminder, we have never had more LGBTQ plus elected officials in the state than we do now.
Amazing.
And they are everywhere, right? I mean, we have Claire Kilman, who is an openly trans member of the Carbondale, Illinois City Council. We have at least 2 members, maybe even 3 of the McLean County Board. Bloomington Normal are openly LGBTQ plus. We have, Alana Banks, who is an out Black trans woman on the Decatur School Board, right? So we have LGBTQ plus people everywhere.
Fabulous.
Who are in public office, who are willing to stand up and say, not just stand up for the narrow focus of LGBTQ plus rights, but saying, when we fight for a government that protects all people, that has a strong social safety net, that ensures everybody has an equal and affirming access to the resources that they need, Illinois is stronger.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I've heard more people this week saying they're so grateful to be living in Illinois right now.
Yes. Yeah, and I should say, too, that's not an accident. I want to be really clear. Yeah. I worry sometimes that people think we're just lucky to be in Illinois.
Nope.
Illinois is LGBTQ plus affirming and supportive because of the hard work of so many of your listeners, right? Who are people who are knocking on doors, making donations, calling their legislators. It is not an accident that we live in a state that has worked so hard to protect LGBTQ plus Illinoisans. It is the result of hard work, brave queer people in leadership, and supportive champions.
Yep, and 100% the importance of community. And speaking of, Equality Illinois is hosting a virtual panel on the 12th at 5 p.m. Central. Which I'm so grateful for, because I remember, like I said earlier in the show, I remember back in 2016, there was a similar moment that was just 4 people in Chicago, and we all gathered together, and community leaders, activists, champions, advocates, all of that. And it was so helpful to be surrounded by community. What is planned for this virtual panel on the 12th?
Yeah, so what we're going to do, again, thank you for this. It's Tuesday the 12th from 5 to 6 via Zoom. We are going to be walking through what we understand to be the greatest challenges that we need to be facing, early stage hypotheses about what we need to be doing to respond to that, and ways to support LGBTQ plus led and serving organizations in this fight. We are in constant conversation with state and national LGBTQ plus leaders. As a matter of fact, I will be at a week-long gathering after Thanksgiving with the heads of almost every LGBTQ plus led civil rights organization in the country, trying to come together to, identify the biggest risks and to map the plan forward. And so this is going to be a little bit of a kind of information session that's kind of going to lay out the current landscape and the roadmap going forward to the best that we know, right? This is a heavily dynamic, constantly evolving, ever-changing environment we're in.
Yep.
But we're going to do our best to make sure that queer people, trans folks, and all of our allies have a decent sense of what we think the landscape looks like.
Yep. And one of the best ways to live your values is to go and support causes that mirror those values. And we want to make sure that everybody knows that Equality Illinois has invited you to join a virtual panel discussion with experts, advocates, and community leaders on November 12th from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central. For more information, go to equalityillinois.us. You can find out how to register for that, how to get the links, and also just to the incredible work that Equality Illinois does for LGBTQ folks and their allies across the state. Brian Johnson, thank you so much for taking time out today to join us. Sending nothing but love to your family and to everybody who is out there fighting the good fight the way you are. You really are the helpers that we are looking for.
Wishing you strength. Gird your loins. We got a battle ahead, but I am confident, Brian, you can lead us through it here in Illinois.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Ellen. I'm so grateful for you all. And here we go.
Here we go. All right, then.